Thanks for joining us here at Rose Quartz Mediumship podcast, where we simply adore anything and everything healing and metaphysically based. Today, we have Brandi, who is a friend, a client, and just an absolutely stunning human here to talk with us as the second half of a podcast that we've been recording. So if you're tuning in and you didn't hear the first one, I just want to invite you to pause, listen to the first one before you dive into this podcast. So thanks for being here for this second half of the podcast, Brandi.
Thank you for having me.
So I wanted to dive a little bit more deeply into what the healing was like for you as you allowed yourself into the realm of spirituality and spirit in a way that previously had felt really unsafe to you.
That is, we could be here for a long time. So I think initially it was really hard. I don't know if it was hard because of my foundations of what I understood, or if it was hard because I had practiced for so many years to not feel those things or discover more versions of those things. So it was a little bit of a slow process for me to allow myself to feel the trauma again, or to understand what side of me. You used to always say to me that I'm a thinker, and that, I'm coming from that first, and that I need to really learn how to feel and what comes up for me as I'm talking and feeling at the same time. That was, I think, the hardest thing for me to come to be able to do. I don't truly understand why, but it really was hard. So it was a baby step process for me. And you were gracious enough to kind of lead me through the reasons of it being more mind-based as opposed to feel-based. But I think all in, trying to get to a place of healing from understanding each component of what the topic was. So if it was something surrounding being a mom and my fear of failing as a mother, there's a feeling of failure from a story that I had told myself for so long, or that was ingrained in me from other people that meant something to me. And I was consistently reiterating that story throughout my life. Or a fear of abandonment. That was another really big trigger for me. And trying to understand why certain things that occur in present day feel like somebody is abandoning me all over again. That I think those are the two that immediately get brought up when you ask me, what the process was like. I think each one of those, while those are the high level overarching reasons or topics of discussion, each one has so many silos added in that are deep rooted into many other stories that I had told myself or that had been present in my world. My brother had passed away when I was very young, and he had passed away right before my birthday in June. And there were so many things that I had repressed, so many things that I didn't fully understand that were ingrained in his passing. And I wasn't able to vocalize because I really didn't understand what was happening as a child. And I really didn't understand why all of the things that I was feeling as an adult sort of led back to that moment in my past. Once he had passed, there were other things that had happened with parents divorcing and, all the things that kind of the ripple effect. And with each ripple effect left a different story, which also left a different imprint on me that I had to unbox, unpack, and understand. And each one was very loaded with emotions. So trying to understand the healing part of it was where you came in to help me shift from that's what your brain is trying to say, that's what your mind is saying, but you need to feel it. You need to understand what emotion is being brought up so that you can actually heal from it. That was really huge for me.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm a huge believer that if we are not feeling this human experience, we can't heal the things that have happened in it. And there's so much scientific research out there right now that is validating that, and that's saying if we are staying in a mind-based place, right? So if we're staying just in a cognitive area and we're just talking about what we think, we're not actually changing anything. We're not actually healing. And it's when we move into an embodied place and we're willing to feel inside of the body the emotions, the sensations that go along with the traumatic experiences that we had earlier in our life. When that happens, we heal. And that piece that you're talking about with the ripple effect in your life, right? How something that may have happened when you were 6 or 8 or 12 is literally driving the adult version of you and the behaviors, the thought patterns that you have, the way that you move through the world, the way that you engage with the world, the way that you engage with yourself. And it's largely driven from not here and now, from another time and space and traumatic experiences that happened to us. And when we're willing to come into the body and feel these feelings, and feel what happened to us that we weren't resourced enough as a small child to be able to feel, because how could we, right? How could you? What that does is it purges or discharges the shock of that trauma out of your nervous system, which gives you the capacity to have a very different relationship with yourself, with the world, with your loved ones, with society. It's absolutely stunning to go through that process. It's not easy, right?
Not at all.
There's a lot of tears, there's a lot of pain, there's a lot of discomfort, there's a lot of frustration, right? Whenever we are learning something new and we're in that kind of beginner's mindset place, it's agitating.
Yeah.
It's so agitating to not know how to do something and to feel like we are failing when we're actually just learning.
100%. And I think even with that, for me, as you were explaining, where do you feel that? What color is it? All of the things that describe what I was feeling helped me uncover even more layers of that onion. So it's a constant tear back of one layer after another. And even still, that same onion might still have some growth in there, but the layer looks different.
Yes.
So it evolves, and it's not a healing process, I feel like, that will ever completely end.
No.
But it's definitely one that once you understand how to feel it, that it's okay, that if you're feeling it in certain parts of your body, that those parts are trying to communicate, and you need to feel all of it in order to truly release it. There's so much that is empowering in that alone, that I can feel it. It's acceptable to feel that level of pain, that level of uncomfortability, that level of uncertainty. And in a safe place, walk through it and allow yourself to love that version, that feeling, because you didn't have another way to do it when you were growing up, or it was, how you were programmed to navigate trauma, struggle, failures. Failure is like a gift. Everybody that has been super successful in life,
they failed a ton.
Yes. And the difference between them and me at the time is failure was this negative, umbrella that I would not allow myself to feel. Like, failure is a bad thing. No. Failure is a great thing because there's so much to learn. And if you allow yourself to feel it, if you allow yourself to name it and say, I feel it in my chest. Why do you feel it in your chest? Why does that keep coming up? I feel it in my throat. Is that where you typically feel it? And start really diving into those layers of each component. It's amazing what your body tells you. It's amazing what your healing capacity is, because all of the traditional healing, traditional therapy, traditional meds, all the things that people will say, here, take this, try this, do this. None of it worked for me because it wasn't truly going inward where the problem really was, which is within my own being, and saying, I love you. It is okay. It is okay to cry. It is okay to have that fear. It is okay to hurt at a level that you're really uncomfortable with. It is really okay to be you. And then let it go. There's no way to describe the release that comes with truly loving yourself all in, head to toe, inside and out. And allowing yourself to be the rawest version of you with yourself and love that person, because there are parts of you that are from childhood. There's parts of you that are from adulthood and everything in between. And each part of you has a purpose. It served a purpose for me to be a certain way as a child to protect me. My own person was trying its best with the tools that it had. As my tools have grown, as my knowledge base has grown, as my willingness to love authentically has grown, and in meeting you, who has taught me how to navigate peeling back those layers of the onion, I have been able to then turn it inward and say, I love all versions of me. I am thankful for all versions of me. And while I don't love all of the things and the trauma and all of the hurt and the pain that's come through certain traumas of my life, I am so thankful for that version of me in that moment, because without that version, without that purpose, without that person, I wouldn't be who I am right now.
That's right. I say all the time that you cannot love the version of you who you are today and hate the experiences that created this version of you. It's not how it works. And I think when we can find a place inside of ourselves where we love ourselves deeply, it also gives a level of acceptance for what created this version of us.
Yeah. And one time you had said to me, it's okay to forgive yourself. Mm-hmm. It's okay to feel that version of you, to feel that trauma, and forgive yourself for not doing something that you think could have stopped that trauma or stopped that event from happening in your life. Forgive yourself for not having the tools that you weren't supposed to have in that moment, because you've in my mindset, I had labeled myself as blank. And you were saying, no, you got to forgive that person. You got to forgive that part, because she didn't have the tools needed. She didn't understand. Yeah. How could she have? She couldn't have done anything different in that moment because of whatever circumstance was surrounding it. So forgive that person and love that person, because she's what got you here. And it's very true. And you can slice each part of your life up into different categories, whether it's childhood and adulthood or 20s or teens. Each version of us has a purpose to get us where we're supposed to go. And we just don't know what that end game is at the time. But looking back on it, without every single one of those things happening in perfect alignment, I would not be where I am literally right now having this conversation with you if every single one of those things did not occur.
That's right. That's right. And I love how deeply you have embodied that. You know, sometimes I have those kinds of conversations with people, and we touch on it, and I know that they're not going to dive into it right then, right? Like maybe they will in the future. But the way that you were able to be present with that and engage with that and embody that was absolutely stunning.
It was really important to me and continues to be important to me to dive into the deep end of the pool and say,
Yes.
I give it to me, hit me with it, because I need that in order to grow. I need to understand it completely in order to be able to then apply it. So if I'm not able to feel it just yet, let me live in mind and help me lay the path for me so that I can understand once I get into body how to navigate it correctly, because I was getting stuck in certain areas with each onion and saying, I don't know how. Erin, I need help. I don't know what I'm supposed to be doing with this. And because I'm a brain person first and focused on mind for whatever reason, I had a very hard time getting into the feeling and the emotion and the where it was and the colors and all the things that could help me heal whatever it was that we were discussing in that time, all of which is very important to the process and to understanding for future traumas or future challenges that will present themselves. You still have to practice every day. And it's not something that, once you understand it, you can easily do. Every single situation might have a different layer that maybe you didn't even uncover from the previous experiences of trying to heal. But with each opportunity comes new growth. So
yeah. It's so true. And one of the things that I really love deeply about somatic healing is that once you understand how to do it, you're not only healing what happened in the past, but you're preventing yourself from having traumatic experiences that have a huge impact on future you. Right? So there's so much healing in that. And you're right. It's not like we kind of go on autopilot and don't have to do it, right?
Right.
So when we're going through a difficult time or there's a traumatic experience that could potentially create trauma for us, if we pause, even if we can't in the moment, but if we can carve out some time that evening or that weekend or whatever and feel, it gives us the opportunity to then not carry that trauma with us for the next 20, 40, 60, how many ever years.
Absolutely. And that's very freeing in and of itself.
Yes.
But one thing that I want to touch back on is it is something that you have to do on a continuum. And sometimes for me, and this is probably because I'm not as well-versed in it as you, but for me, there are moments where I will try to hit pause and I'll try to get into it. And for whatever reason, I'm not in the space to do it. And I think that is also an important component of the healing process, because there are just times where I do still feel like there's something that's just not ready to embrace it in that moment for whatever reason. But I consistently go back to it. So maybe in that 5-minute pause of me saying, okay, let's just breathe and take a minute to try and feel it. If it's not automatically coming, if it's not something that I'm able to truly get my arms around, I allow that moment to say, it's okay. We're going to try and feel that maybe tomorrow. But I revisit it because it is important to consistently practice it. And sometimes, whether it's because there's kids in the background or, you've got soccer practice coming up or baseball or whatever it might be, it's hard. Dinner, whatever, things are going on, and the noise can sometimes infiltrate so loudly that we're not able to get into a space. But going back to it is always the essential piece.
That's right. And that's where our commitment to the healing is so important, right? Because it is difficult to feel these things. And there will be times that we are under-resourced and don't have the ability, or life is happening, right? Like kids, spouse, house, business, life is happening around us. And we're not able to access ourselves the way that we want to in order to have that healing. And taking the time to go back and prioritizing that, whether it's later that day or 3 days later or a week later even. taking that time and not just stuffing it down and pretending it doesn't exist is the important aspect there.
100%. And I think it's with all things that you have taught me, I think it's also one of the most important pieces of what you've taught me is that it's all good. It's all okay. When you're in the space, when you're navigating the emotion, all that's coming is good because all of it is helping us express whatever needs to be expressed. So as you're navigating the process, as you're going through the hurt and the trauma and feeling it wherever you're feeling, being able to understand it and then learn from it, that is all good. Even though it's uncomfortable, even though it doesn't feel good necessarily, that growth is happening and shifting and moving within you. And that's why you're feeling all the feels. And I think most people that aren't able to experience growth in a healthy way shun away from it because it's easy to stuff it. It's easier to not feel it. Mm-hmm. It's easier just to continue trudging along and pretending like there aren't all sorts of emotional components going on inside of us. It's easier in society to not carry weight visibly. It is easier in our own realms to not walk the hard path. And unfortunately, if you really want the growth, if you really want that healing to happen, you've got to feel it. You've got to really trudge through some of the very murky water.
Yeah. I say all the time that we don't get the option of not picking hard. We just get to pick what kind of hard we like, right? It's like, being overweight is hard. Losing weight is hard. Pick your hard, right? When we stuff our emotions and we don't feel them and we don't feel the sensations that are happening inside of our body, that leads to a major impact on the way that we move through the world, in the way that we engage with the world, in the way that we engage with ourselves, in the way that we engage with God or the universe or spirit or the divine or source. And that's one way of hard that we can pick, right? Like that's our choice. We can pick that. Feeling it and doing that work and sitting in the discomfort that comes along with feeling feelings and even the discomfort of trying to figure out how to feel feelings, right? That's another kind of hard. And I always tell people you get to pick your hard. And I'm actually not emotionally attached to which hard you pick.
Right.
Right? Like if you want this hard, perfect. I'm not here to convince you that you should want a different hard. And this is also hard. For me, this version of hard creates possibility and opening and love and healing and depth and belonging and connection. And so that's the kind of hard I'm going to pick. Even if the acuteness of the discomfort is greater, it's like, how do you pull off a Band-Aid, right? Are you somebody who just whips it off and it's like a 1 second thing?
That's me.
Or are you somebody who like slowly peels the whole thing? Right? And so I don't think that we get to pick not hard. It's just what kind of hard are we willing to pick, want to pick? What's our authentic desire to pick? And are we resourced enough to pick it?
100%.
Because it does take friends and family and loved ones. When we are going through deep, profound healing, it's messy. And there's going to be times where we don't sleep well or we're not the best version of us because we're sitting in something that is so profoundly painful. And to have people around us who understand what we're doing, why we're doing it, and can offer support and a ground rather than kind of piling on to what we're already experiencing is such a blessing.
100%. That is huge if you have that. Mm-hmm. It is harder if you don't. But either way, it is, for me, the most empowering thing to do on your own. Nobody has the correct way to navigate healing.
No.
Nobody has a one tried and true, this is the only way. There's lots of paths. And even as you're navigating somatics, and even as you're peeling back the layers of that onion, you might think you're on one path, and then all of a sudden you're like, oh, okay, there's a deeper way to feel that feel.
Yes.
So there's multiple paths to get to the same place. All through it, that mirror that you have to look inward, you have to start with you, is essential, because you are where it all comes from. The good and the bad and everything in between, all of the feels, you have to feel them. All of the judginess and the, gosh, I really wish I did that different. Who can not say that in their life? Like, all of us have some semblance of remorse or regret for some part of our childhood or path that we wish we could redo. But when you can't, you still have to forgive that version of you. And you still have to feel the feels that come along with the choices that we made way back when, or even as little as yesterday. Nobody is perfect. But if you start with the mirror, if you start with reflection, if you start with feeling and not leading with all of the noise or all of the lenses that we were told to wear, and you just truly dive inward, that is the beauty that can occur. And when it starts happening, it's a roller coaster ride that you actually choose to be on, as painful as it might be, because you see that the ride will end, but getting to that end is where I want to be, because this hasn't been working all the way up until now. So let's try a new way.
Yeah. Yeah. So you had done a lot of therapy and tried multiple different kind of approaches to healing. Are you comfortable talking about what it was like to move from a more cognitive therapy-based space into somatics and healing in this space, and what you saw for a difference there?
Yes, I can say that, as I mentioned in the first part of this podcast, there was a lot of color in my life, very traumatic experiences. I call it color because I don't necessarily always know how to describe all of the layers of trauma that did occur. I mentioned my brother passing. There was also a lot of abuse in my childhood. And with all of the things that had come in to my understanding of love, my understanding of life, my understanding of how parents interact with children, how friends engage with friends, all sorts of layers of my childhood were very dysfunctional. With that, because I was in so much dysfunction, in my opinion, I started to choose unhealthy choices. And my parents decided that I needed to go into therapy to try and unravel some of it from a very early age. And I even had one therapist that literally would fall asleep in our time together, which was very interesting to me, because here you're trying to heal and you're trying to literally pour all of these things out, and you're watching the person that's supposed to be helping you and that you're paying to help you learn how to navigate really traumatic things, fall asleep was also another feeling of confirmation that people aren't what I needed to heal. So I'm just not going to talk anymore. I'm going to go back into my shell, because what's the point? I've had other therapists label me with things that I knew were never me. And at the core of all of it, I was truly just a child that had a very dysfunctional upbringing. and learning how to process the amount of trauma with the amount of influences that had come into my life was really hard to do. And I didn't have the vocabulary. I didn't have the capacity to truly understand what was happening, why it was happening, and how I was feeling about what was happening. And then on top of all of that was a nice layer of icing called you don't have a voice.
Yeah.
You're not allowed to share your opinions about what are happening. It was a very hard experience. But when you start going through different layers of therapy and one therapist after another, choosing different versions of clinical therapy to help you navigate, and none of it's working, you start to truly believe that maybe you're just broken.
Yeah.
And that's just the way it is. So with that, you start healing yourself and you dive into what works for you so that you feel good. For me, I became a mom, and my biggest drive was to not repeat choices of the past that adults had made in my life, that I really wanted to not be that version. So that was what propelled me and drove me to dive deeper into my faith, dive deeper into my spirituality, and choose to consistently level myself up. When I met you, and I had all of those things under my belt, if you will, the different types of therapy, diving in deeper into my faith and trying to navigate the world in the best way I knew how, with healthy choices and a loving, supportive husband and children that I truly believed were gifts, literally like my little miracles. Mm-hmm. I met you, and I want to say that within 6 to 7 meetings and understanding somatics and understanding what I was experiencing as an adult and as a child, and the trauma that existed from childhood through to now, you were able to heal versions of me or teach me how to heal.
Yeah, I was just about to correct you there.
Teach me how to heal versions of myself from starting way back to when I was 2 years old. You were able to teach me how to heal and navigate the trauma in 6 to 7 sessions, when I had seen at least 10 different therapists over the course of years. And none of them were able to truly give me the skill set to navigate the really big things. And not one of them created a space safe enough for me to navigate being very raw, which is very uncomfortable, sharing very deep rooted things in a space that was safe and comfortable. And when it became uncomfortable for me, you reiterated that safety. You reiterated the navigation of moving through the different versions of somatics and feeling the feels, and calling me out and saying, nope, we're not going to move past that. We need to stay. You're feeling it. Like, let's really go deeper. And as soon as you gave me the safe space to do it, I allowed myself to go there. That is very, very different from traditional therapies where you talk about the problems. I've talked about, let's use my brother passing. That was a very traumatic event in my life. And the series of events that happened past that were also very traumatic. But talking about the trauma doesn't heal it. Talking about the day he died and all of the ripple effects and all of the things that made me feel like a failure, like I should have done more to help him, or I heard fighting going on, all the things that kind of happened and surrounded that day. No matter how many times you tell the story, you're not looking inward. You're not diving into the feelings of the trauma. You're using your mind to communicate. You're using your mind to remember. But there's no healing that's coming from the talking. And that was the disconnect for me with traditional therapy. And this is not to say that every single therapist that does traditional styles of therapy do it the same or aren't able to reach people in what they do. I am sure it works for some people. For me, that was not what would work to heal the trauma, to heal that version of me, to heal the past that I had been carrying for so many years. What I needed was to really dive into the trauma and dive into the emotion of it, dive into the feeling that kept coming up and why did it keep coming up. And when I was able to completely dive in and be vulnerable and very raw in a safe space with somebody literally navigating me through the different components of somatics, I finally felt healed. I finally felt like I could close certain chapters of my life. Not to say that scars aren't still there.
No. Mm-hmm.
But the healing underneath the scar tissue isn't going deeper and deeper and growing. It stopped. And I'm not reopening that scar up to dive and create another wound. It's closed. It's healed. It will always be a part of me, and that's okay. But it's not reinforced by more stories that I literally am telling myself and reaffirming the traumatic stories that I was initially told.
Yeah. Oh, that was just so juicy and delicious listening to you talk about what that experience was like for you. And I think it's so hard when we feel like we have done the good thing, right? Like we did the thing. We went to therapy, or we went to this, or we went to that, right? We sought out healing and it didn't work. And the piece that you were talking about there of like seeing 10 therapists and not getting where you wanted to be with any of them, and feeling like you were the problem, like you were broken. I think a lot of people have had that kind of lived experience. And it takes so much courage to try again. And I can remember sitting with you in one of our very first sessions and you saying, how is this going to be any different? And I knew that you already knew it was going to be different because you were sitting in the chair next to me. Yep. But your question was such a beautiful question because you have to access massive courage to be willing to come back and try something when you've tried it a bunch of different ways and none of which have worked and potentially made you feel worse about yourself.
Yeah.
Right? And to have the courage to come back and try again and to try something new and to try something that was definitely outside of your comfort zone.
Completely.
And that's so brave and that's so courageous. And watching you in, all things considered, a very short period of time. Heal so profoundly and so deeply was absolutely stunning to get to witness. I felt like I had first row seats at this show. Yeah. And getting to watch you just was breathtaking. It was absolutely breathtaking. All parts of the journey, right? The flailing in the beginning and the resistance and the surrender that followed. And then watching you be such a different version of you, such an aligned version of you, such an authentic version of you, such a loving version of you. Not that there wasn't a version of you that wasn't loving, right?
Right.
But it gave you a different capacity to love. And I know you talked about that in the last podcast. And it allowed you to meet yourself and the world with less judgment.
Even of myself.
Yeah.
I remember when I met my husband, I was 20, and I had met him on day 2. I knew I was like crazy about him. And I said to him, you don't want to be with me. I am broken. You just do yourself a favor. Turn around. I am not for you. Trust me. Total broken. There's lots of problems with me. I come from dysfunction. You're too good for me. No. I look back at my 20-year-old self and I say, thank God he didn't listen to me, first of all, because we're 25 years in now and I couldn't be happier and I love him with every cell of my being. But I was so broken in my mindset to believe that I was broken, not worthy of his love, not worthy of a journey with him. It was day 2, and I was telling him, I'm too broken for you. I'm not good enough. And that is exactly where I was in that moment and exactly where I was at that point in my life. But in going from that to hearing even you describe the growth and the healing process, as ugly as it was in certain moments, is truly like a complete transformation, because I remember being that broken that I was literally pushing away anything good in my life.
Right, trying to convince him that he should run in the opposite direction.
Exactly. Yeah. Which is crazy. And I'm so glad he didn't listen. But I think, having gone through the process of healing, and even he doesn't fully understand what it looked like, even though he was navigating some of the highs and lows with me. It was a very private and personal journey for me. It was not one that I could really explain to a lot of people, because how do you go into the rawness and the vulnerability without that safety net of knowing it's all good? Even your rawest moments, even your ugliest of ugly, is still beautiful. And it's still what's going to propel you to navigate through the process to get to the amazing flower of rebirth that you're going to experience. And it, as personal and private as it is, it's a journey that when you really dive into it and you truly start to understand somatics and you truly allow yourself the gift of courage to heal yourself, and the gift of being raw and vulnerable and being as open to anything and everything as you can be, that's when all of that magic can happen. I don't know that traditional therapy for me ever would have worked, because I was never in a space with somebody that would allow that type of rawness and realness and create a safe space for that. Without adding in a label. And I think that's part of the problem with traditional therapy is there is that label component. She's depressed, she's whatever, any type of label that you want to put on somebody. It stems from psychology and all of that. And not to say that maybe I am labeled, but the labels for me clouded my ability to dive into me. The labels were more noise that stopped me from penetrating through the noise and diving inward, if that makes sense.
It does. And I think that so many people struggle in that same place. It's like labels create a sense of separation. And for so many of us, labels create shame, right? Shame creates a freeze response for so many of us in our nervous system. And so if we're just walking around slapping labels on people and creating a shame response, which could create a freeze response in them, we're not moving in the right direction. And one of the things that I really love about my practice is that not only do I not want to label people, I don't have to.
Right?
Yeah. I don't have to.
Yeah.
And I'm sure that there are so many therapists who also don't want to label, or psychologists or psychiatrists who don't want to label because they recognize the harm that can have, but they have no choice because that's how our culture is set up. And so while that is a pathway that works for so many people, for other people, not only does it not work, it can actually be more damaging. And I believe wholeheartedly that we all need a safe, non-judgmental space in order to heal. And I think that we need connection and a sense of belonging. And it's really hard to have a sense of belonging with a practitioner if they're slapping labels on you. And my goal has always been in my practice to create a really safe, non-judgmental space. I don't care what somebody's bringing. I simply care that they feel safe enough to bring it and to set it on the table and to be able to talk about it and feel it and work through it and heal it. And I think if we can't talk about things, we cannot heal them. If we cannot feel things, we cannot heal them. And I believe wholeheartedly that our job as a practitioner is to create a safe enough space for someone to do that. And it's vulnerable and it's raw and it's hard. And remembering that everyone who is walking through your door, whether it's a physical door or a Zoom room door, is having to access so much courage and bravery and inner strength to be able, I always call it standing naked in the middle of the room, because that's what it feels like to me. And asking people to do that on repeat is not an easy ask. And yet you and so many other people are able to do that, to show up and stand naked in the middle of the room and say, this is all my stuff. And it's emotional and it's hard and it's dysregulating and healing.
Very healing and very and you just completely are just evolved into a different realm of you that you didn't even know existed. A couple of things as you were speaking that hit me. One was, I remember in one session with you, I don't even know what we were discussing, but I was so right there. And whatever amount of time we had scheduled, I was going over. Didn't even know I was going over, didn't have any clarity as to how much I was going over. And you were bringing me through each moment of what I was feeling. And we literally were diving deeper and deeper into each layer. And all of a sudden, I start the dots are all connecting for me and I'm seeing it and I'm like so in a good spot. And I thank you. And then you share with me that we had gone over by half an hour. I actually think it was more like 40 minutes. And I remember feeling like, oh my God, I can't believe I did that. I'm really, really sorry. And you said I could have stopped you, but you were right in that moment of healing. And I didn't want to interrupt that amazing growth that you were experiencing. I walked out of here. I have never had, of all of the therapists, of all of the amount of time I've been in therapy, I never had any one of them not stop me at that exact hour. Oh, sorry, time's up. Didn't matter how raw I was, didn't matter what I was saying, didn't matter what my mental state was, meaning if I was a complete basket case crying and sobbing, or if I was light as an airy as could be. As soon as that hour popped up, it was an immediate shutdown. And the influence that you had on me just from allowing me to navigate what I was feeling, literally choosing to encourage diver deeping into, that's even a word, into the emotional components of what I was experiencing to be able to get to heal that specific area was monumental for me. And it's those little things, I feel like, that really set somebody who's a healer apart from a therapist or apart from a life coach, somebody who truly has the ability to meet you where you are and teach you how to navigate through it. That was life-altering for me. It truly was.
Yeah, I will never forget that day. I remember you saying, "Are we out of time?" And I said, "Yeah, we were out of time a while ago." And I remember watching, my interpretation was some shame come across you or embarrassment and saying, "Oh my gosh, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry." And I remember kind of laughing and saying, "Do you think I was going to help you get all the way there and then stop?" Like, do you know how hard we'd worked to get you into that place?
Yep.
And there was not a chance I was going to walk away at that point.
Right.
You know, it was like what you needed was to get there and then go deeper. And your willingness to do it was so beautiful. So beautiful. And I can remember you like picking up your purse and running for the door and being like, I'll leave. And I was like, you're okay.
Because it was something, it was ingrained. And again, you know, time management and being able to not infiltrate my stuff into somebody else's realm where it literally changes their afternoon. Definite shame came across. But I think that's one of the amazing things about somatics is that having you teach and heal at the same time as allowing the person that you're helping navigate this course with, you're empowering them to be authentically raw, to feel all the feels and create that safe space, not only between you and that person, but for that person themselves. And I think, you know, in the first podcast, we had spoken about how it was that everything is about light and love, that it's truly at our core, we're speaking the same language, and that love is love, period. Like that's what we're here to do, is just give love. That includes self-love.
Yes.
And it includes the ability to create a space to love yourself enough to want to walk through the murky waters, to want to be a support system to other people as you're seeing them walk through murky waters. Life is hard. And there's no right way or wrong way. But for me, traditional therapy lacked that love, that compassion. It was clinical. It was cold. It was a diagnosis. It was not raw. It wasn't accepting. It was labeling, and it was adding noise. And this forces you to love all versions of you. It creates a space to recognize that maybe you are broken in certain areas, but you have the power to heal you if you love you and if you learn how to navigate through all of the feels and all of the things that you taught me how to do. That all allows you to love that much more for not only everybody around you, but for you internally and all of the versions of ourselves. And I can be a ton of fun, or I can be very serious, or I can be a complete puddle. And I'm okay with all of it now. I would never say to my husband, I'm broken. Those words would never come out of my mouth.
What a huge, huge transformation.
For sure.
What a huge transformation.
Thanks to Somatics, thanks to you and to all the things that you taught me, and truly, you know, the gift of healing, the gift of love, the gift of really creating a safe space. Not many people have that gift. And no matter how you walk the earth, you feel your energy and your presence of light and love. And that alone is the biggest gift. I think that was what it started with, was you being in the room and allowing that space for light and love. And me breaking down walls and all is because that energy that I immediately felt, and I've always been able to feel other people's stuff, whether it's, you know, their tension of the day or their light and airiness. I can feel others when they walk into a room. And when you came in, that was what you led with, was light and love. And that creates that safe space, that creates that vulnerability to say, I'm willing to dive deep with her. I'm willing to learn. and I'm willing to go through all of the mess because I know I want to be the best version of me, and I've never met anybody else that can help me do it, ever. So I am who I am because of all my past and all the trauma and all of the wonderful layers and all of the negativity that I experienced. But that said, I am the happiest version of me now because of all of your teachings and all of your gifts. And I cannot ever thank you enough and tell you how much I value you and appreciate you and your gifts and your talents and your abilities. In 7 sessions alone, I became a completely different person. And you're the only person I can say that's ever done that to me other than my children. And it's 100% raw and real and honest. And I cannot thank you enough. There aren't words for it because what you taught me is invaluable. What you taught me is how to lead my own life with light and love in a completely healed version of me, without any of the baggage, without any of the noise, without any of the labels, all of the things that I've been traditionally raised with are gone. And that has propelled me into a different version of me that is so much better, so much lighter, so much more kind and loving without any of that extra. And I don't know how you put that into words to the point where somebody else can truly feel how much they've changed you and how much they've taught you, and in such a short period of time. That's the most amazing part, is that you did it literally in hours versus years of therapy that I've experienced. And it wasn't that you did anything other than create the space and teach me.
And none of it would be possible if it wasn't for you being open to it and your willingness to try things that were outside your comfort zone and break down walls and dig in and do some of that profoundly deep work that is not comfortable. None of it would be possible. And so, I love and adore your words and I'm so grateful for them. And I just want to remind you that it all started with you.
It does, but you just need somebody to hold your hand sometimes.
Yes.
And sometimes
Yes.
you need somebody to say it's really okay. It's really okay. It is all good and it will all be good. And that's not to say that my journey will translate to somebody else's journey and it will be as quick. I definitely wanted to dive into the deep end of the pool without a life jacket, without swimmies, without
yes,
anything.
You did.
That was my path and my journey, and everybody's will look different. But I think creating the space for light, love, and raw emotion and allowing all that to be safe while teaching and not allowing people to get outside of their, they want to wiggle around certain things. You encourage them to, navigate back in. At no point was it ever a situation where there was an additional label or an additional uncomfort. And when I asked you and you were concerned in any way about whether or not it would push me to an uncomfortable space, my response was, let's go. Let's go all in.
Yes, it was.
But other people might need a little bit longer, and that's okay too. And I think that's the beauty of Somatics is it is driven by what you're willing to do in your time. And it's not driven by your timelines or mine or anybody else's. It's what that mirror looks like for them and what they're willing to uncover within their mirror at their time. And as long as they're willing to keep digging through those layers, it really can be life altering.
Yeah. And some people are going to take more time. Some people are going to need more time because that's the pace that their nervous system can heal at, or that their body can heal at, that their heart can heal at. And there's nothing wrong with that. And then there's other people who come in and are jumping in the deep end of the pool with no life vest and no swimmies, and it can be profound and it can be fast. And that's all beautiful.
And it is what it's supposed to be.
Yes.
And that's the best part too, is there's no timeline for there. All of this,
Yes.
We're not promised anything other than today. And if you can make the best of today and give your all to your journey today in this moment and try your hardest, whether you come out healed in 2 years, 3 years, 5 years versus 8 months, it's all okay.
Yes. And it's all beautiful.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Well, it has been an absolute blessing to get to spend this time with you and to get to cross paths with you and walk next to you on your healing journey. And I really appreciate your vulnerability, not just in our own sessions, your vulnerability at the women's retreat, and your vulnerability in this podcast.
Thank you.
And I so appreciate the way that you move through the world.
Thank you for everything. Truly, it's been a pleasure, and it's definitely been a blessing. I totally agree with you on that. And I'm excited for what's to come, whatever that looks like.
Yes, I agree.